It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.
He joins us again, the Chook, Daryl Halligan out of Oz. We got a massive round 27 coming. So many key games, mate. Before we get into that, though, just a few thoughts from you on the Warriors season. 9 wins, 1 draw and 14 losses. So a lot of promise there, but real disappointment in the end.
Yeah, there was a lot of disappointment towards the back end of the season for the Warriors, especially after the way they finished last year and expectations for this season. And I think that was the killer in a way, and amongst having some key players out during the season was playing with the weight of expectation this year, and obviously they didn't carry that. Tohu Harris misses a big chunk of the back end of the season. I actually thought Dylan Walker did really, really well in his absence and thought he played really well. And then, of course, when you haven't got your star player playing for the majority of the games, and I mean, we've seen, Reynolds, Nico Hines, Sean Johnson, Nathan Cleary, Kalen Ponga. We've seen, the marquee player of each team out for long periods of the game this year. Sean played 16 games this year out of the 24 rounds. We probably needed him to play closer to 20. He played 21 last year. So there's a little bit of a gauge, Of course, Nathan Cleary's only played 10 games this year. And for a team that's travelling really well and has made the finals and think they're a chance of winning it, someone like Manly, their main half and Daly Shuri Evans, he's played 21 games this year. So keeping your marquee players on the field and having them play the majority of the games, I think in a competition that's really close, can be the difference whether you play finals or you don't.
Couple of things, Daryl. So at the start of the year, so much promise, 16 wins last year and a game away from the grand final. But look, did every other team get a little better? Because that's what we normally say every year, don't we? That this league doesn't sleep.
I think the teams that have made the finals, and you could run a line through every year, are the best defensive teams in the competition. So I don't have a problem with the attack. I mean, I don't have a problem with the Warriors anyway, but I mean, if you analyse the Warriors game, did they defensively let themselves down this year? Is that where the main improvement for next year comes, or the next couple of years? Well, it's an improvement every year in defence. I mean, the Dogs weren't even sort of like thought of top 8 this year, let alone top 4. And now they've got a game for a home final if they beat the Cows tomorrow night. And their defence has been the reason why they sit so high on the table. You couldn't say that with the Warriors this year. I mean, one game that really springs to mind, I shouldn't even mention it, but the Titans up there on the Gold Coast where they get more than 50, I think 66 put on them is just something you don't want to even really visit. So I shouldn't have actually brought it up. But that does highlight that defence has been a problem at times. So that would be number one priority, I'd imagine, for Andrew Webster and the coaching staff for next year. They know they can. They talk about getting their game on, and I like it too. And when you see them sort of like get their game on and spread the ball and score tries and what have you, that's easy. But like the defensive part of the game is so crucial, and that's why teams are playing finals and why teams are not.
As far as the fixture list goes, when you look at all of those games, and there's half a dozen games here you can pinpoint and say, I should have won that game. We're only so close, and there's just a score away from that. Is that conversation even worth having? Because every team can do that, can't they? Every team can point to it, and I keep saying it's not a talking league; it's a winning league.
Yeah, but the teams that are going to make the 8 by 2 points and that aren't talking about the game that they won a Magic round against Penrith this year. You know what I mean? First time they've beaten them for a long time and on a big stage, and did that without Sean as well. How do you beat the reigning premiers of the last 3 years in Magic round and you haven't got your star player on the field as well? So it just goes to show that you can play, but yet that game things fell your way a little bit. In other games it didn't. So there's a lot of bits and pieces you can put together and pick out one game that you might have thought that cost you. But it's basically the whole season that costs you if you don't make the 8. So, but whatever, like you take a team like Parramatta Eels. I mean, 2 years ago, 2022, they were playing grand final against Penrith, and they get beaten in the grand final, and now they're playing for the spoon tomorrow night against the Tigers.
Yeah, I know, it's remarkable, isn't it? That's the kind of league it is,
Broncos.
though, mate.
Brisbane Broncos play in the grand final last year, and they won't play in the finals this year. I mean, what's going on? There's been some other dramatic declines in other teams as well.
Let's look at key fixtures then and questions in this final round 27. And what I love about it is whoever does the draw, I don't know whether it's a supercomputer. I hope it's some boffin who sits in an office somewhere with an algorithm and thousands of bits of paper around him. Because that final game, let's go to it. You know, after 27 rounds, you go down to Newcastle versus Dolphins, which is effectively like a round of 16 or a quarterfinal to get the 8th place. You couldn't write a better script, mate. 6:05 Sunday night in New Zealand. At the end of your sporting weekend, you get a fixture like that with everything on it.
And to boot as well, the Dolphins, only second year in the competition and only just missed out on finals in their first. You know, Wayne Bennett leaving the Dolphins wants to deliver some success to them. So the Dolphins have to head to McDonald Jones in Newcastle for Sunday's match. They get a couple of breaks this week. They get Kafusi, who sidestepped the judiciary this week. He will play. And then they changed their team around last week. He made 4 or 5 changes in the halves. Cody Nikorima was one. They brought Sean O'Sullivan back into the half. They actually put Jake Averillo, who was at the Dogs a couple of years ago, and has been playing centre for the Dolphins. They put him in at 5'8", and a lot of those changes last week worked for Wayne Bennett. Wayne visiting his old club up at Newcastle, where he's coached before. He returns there to sort of try and knock them out of finals. I mean, you're right. Whoever put the draw together needs a real, pat on the head. Great game. Sunday afternoon, Newcastle will have to win their last 3. And they've won 2 to make the finals. They knew that 2 weeks ago. Let's see if their race still continues. The key for them, Kalen Ponga, Dally M Player of the Year last year, beat Sean Johnson. Basically got points in the last match of the year last year to deny Sean Johnson the Dally M Player of the Year, and he wins it. So, great script, good story, and it'll be even a better story for either Newcastle or the Dolphins heading into finals. So I don't think either of those teams realistically could hold the trophy above their heads this year. With the battle for 7th and 8th this week, but great effort to get to finals.
Daryl Halligan is with us, and he won a grand final in 1995 with the Bulldogs. Well, who finishes 5th and 6th?
That was a long time ago, Dev.
I tell you, I still mention it because, you beat...
Also won a lollipop when I was 5.
But you beat Manly, and that Manly side had just about gone unbeaten. I think they'd only lost 1 game this year or something.
It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.